Hey there, it's Boots Owen here. This is my Howard Gem, the Howard Gem that I have at the moment. I don't particularly need it. It's quite an old model. It has a kind of a manual start in that you wrap a rope around here and pull it, and that gets the engine going. The engine works. I've had the engine running, but the clutch seems to be stuck in. So when you try and go from neutral up on the gearbox or up on the gear shifter into any of the gears, it grinds away like crazy, which sounds pretty grim, I've got to say. So I'm presuming it's a clutch issue. On this one, the clutch is in here in this bell housing, somewhere in here and there. There's actually a inspection here I should probably have a look at, but what I'm thinking is if it's just stuck, what I should do is just take off all of these bolts the whole way around. There's about 15 of them or something like that. I've done this job before. It's not really that big a job. I should be able to have it off in quite a short time. We've got to disconnect the fuel line. I've got to disconnect the throttle line, and over on the other side I've got to disconnect the air hose, which, given that it hasn't got a Jubilee clip on it, shouldn't take anything more than a moment. Look, I like that. The fuel line's just got a bit of rubber hose on it. So I'll get cracking, see how I get on. I've also got to prop the engine, so I might drop the back to get it level, prop the engine, and maybe prop in here as well with some kind of a jack, because when the load comes off it might rise. No, then there's no need to prop the back. I'll just prop the engine. I might put on some gloves as well. So now I have the engine blocked up on wood. I have 1, 2, 3, 6 of the screws removed, and there's only 2 more, so I was way out. There's only 8 screws in it. I've taken out all the ones around the bottom before I put the chocks in, and it's just hanging on the top 2 now. They've all slackened off quite easily. The ones on the bottom were particularly oily, but that is good really because it makes them easy to get out. So I'll keep going. Before I do that, I should disconnect the other bits I spoke about earlier. Well, that was rather easy. I think it's best to disconnect the fuel line on both ends. It comes in here and goes into a fuel pump and then goes up to the carburetor. So that looks like it's a bit of a budge. I'll try up here. It's loose, so I'm going to be gentle with these things. I think the fuel is off. I think I remember turning it off whenever I last laid it up. Fuel. And it is also clamped on here. Everything is filthy and oily, and there's no points cover on this engine, which is a serious setback for... not sure about getting that out now. I suspect underneath that screw in here there's a tiny nut and I can't get to it, so I'm going to have to just not split it too hard. So I'll get these nuts and bolts out then next. It's quite stiff, this last screw. The ones on the bottom were all covered in oil, but the ones on the top are quite dry, so it's out now anyways. So I'm just going to tap it with a hammer, and that's it. Plunk, there it is, it's apart. And let's see what we can see in here. So there it is, the split. Doesn't need to be chopped at the back because it's resting on the prop. In the past, what I found where there was a seized clutch, if I recall correctly, was that these pins weren't clean, and looking at this, well, I'll try and get in a close look at the damage here. So I'm over on the other side, and I can see that this machine has been fairly dogged in its life. there's the tip in there, and this spindle is completely knackered. And up on this side, I think there's meant to be a bearing in there. What was that? That looks like a cracked bearing race. So the other half of that and all the ball bearings, I can see one ball bearing in there. This is not a happy clutch. The engine end feels quite happy. Now these pins here, I don't know that they're meant to have any grooves in them, and you can see that there's 3 grooves in them. I'm not sure what that's about. So the clutch end as well, it's got a bit of play in it, but it feels okay. And the fiber disc there has a big step in it. That may well all be asbestos dust, so I need to be careful. It's not dusty here, but all this snot up here. So what I have a feeling is that this needs to come apart or somehow be rejigged. Okay, so it looks like this bearing here went. What I'm thinking is this bearing went, then this clutch side here on the right was free to slap about, and when it was slapping about, these discs here, and there's I guess 3 of them, if it's a multi-plate jobby, were whopping off these pins. So it might just be a quick bearing job, and you know, looking at it, it really might just be a quick bearing job, although if that shaft is completely buzzed by the look of it, because if that's half the bearing race, I think it ain't gonna fit on that shaft anymore. If that's half the bearing race, it isn't gonna fit in that shaft, so I'm not entirely sure that there's gonna be much great fixing in this one. To get this off, I'm guessing I'm going to have to take off that castellated nut in there. There's a split pin on it. Back that off, then the clutch should fall out and then be adjusted from the other side. There's a number of screws, 4 of them I think, coming from the other side. It's a bit nasty. I might have to get rid of that throttle cable. I might take it off the other end and have a better look. Okay, so with my helper pulling the clutch, let go again. So let's do that again. Pulled in. You can see those plates become loose and then tightened up. Let go. The plates become loose again. So there's 2 fiber discs. Maybe they're not asbestos, but they're something like that. And then 3 metal plates. And they just pull them again. So the clutch is working. Just don't know why it wasn't disengaging before. Look at the sludge down the bottom there. It's a bit of a weird one, this. It does definitely need a new bearing, so I'm not sure I'll be able to get one. Might be possible to make up a little bush or something. Get the old bearing out of over here, because that's pretty bad looking. And then just polish up these pins. Just file off the chewed up metal. Maybe might do it. Yeah, because what seems to have been happening is that if these were bedded in here, if the discs were bedded in, actually I don't know, you'd have to weld them up and file them down maybe. If the discs were bedded in there, even caught on one of them, it doesn't matter, pulling the clutch isn't going to release them, so I'll have to have a look at that. Yeah, so maybe this will highlight the importance of keeping an eye on your machine, especially, let's get that out, especially keeping bearings in good nick. So there's another one. There's a bit of the ball race somewhere. There it is there. Looks like there's another bearing embedded in there. Yeah, it's pretty chewed up, alright. So today is tomorrow and the machine is in 2 parts still. I have the engine separated completely as before. After I went in last night I thought, well, I'll just put it up on eBay for 99p, because that clutch, you know, really, I reckon I could have bodged it together, but really you need a new bearing in there, you need a bush to fit the bearing or something like that, to fit that little shaft into a bearing, and you'd have to angle grinder those pins down to polish them up, and you might bodge it back together. So I put it up on eBay, 99p, and a chap rang me from up the north of the country and said, yeah, I'll have that off you. and we came to an agreement on price, and it was a lot more than 99p, a price I was happy with. Get my money back anyways, that's the main thing. And he'll take it away on Saturday. So, you know, he said he's got a lathe. He doesn't have any issues making himself a new clutch by the sounds of things. So I think he's just gonna go for making a new clutch on it, you know, and get it going and restore it in some fashion and use it in a proper way. And, you know, really that's what it takes. If you've got a will to do something, humans being what we are, we find a need and we fill it with what we can and within our means and within our capabilities, and he's going to do just that. So that's a kind of a happy ending for this Howard gem. Thanks for watching. See you later.